This is it, guys, the last HSV GTS. This is based on the MY16 Holden Commodore, so it gets a few little design tweaks, but basically this will remain as the most powerful production car Australia has ever made. HSV might introduce a GTSR special edition later this year before manufacturing completely closes, but that is just a rumour at this stage, and that will be a very strict special edition if it does happen, whereas this is just the mainstream GTS. Interestingly, this is the manual transmission version. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's the most powerful manual car you can get in Australia at the moment. You can get the Ford Falcon XR8 Sprint, which is about 400 kilowatts. But aside from that, yeah, there's nothing north of 400 kilowatts that you can get with a manual transmission. I think that's pretty unique of HSV to do that. It wants to stick with its heritage and retain the sort of driving engagement that it's always had. So new for 2016, you might notice this body kit, this black body kit. So it's got little trimmings all the way around the bottom, side skirts, the sort of flat racing style side skirts. And then around at the front, it's slightly revised with some new grills and bonnet vents. I have actually checked these bonnet vents, and they do go through to the engine on 3 out of the 5 slits. But I'm not sure what they actually do, or if they do anything. But they definitely give it a boost in visual appeal, especially in the black. I actually quite like this jungle green colour. Normally the press cars are red, and I'm getting a bit sick of red, to tell you the truth, but this is actually a very nice colour for this style of vehicle. It's also nice with the tinted windows, which is not something we normally see on press cars. I think it's a nice sleek, a nice sleek setting for this type of vehicle. Also new is a set of 20-inch lightweight alloy wheels, and they hide those huge AP Racing 6-piston calipers at the front and 4-piston at the rear. These are some of the best brakes on a production car that I've ever experienced. HSV have always been really good with brakes. We tested the 100 to 0, and it came up in about 35 meters or something. I'll have to get the official time for that, but I remember checking it and thinking, gee, that's really impressive. So yeah, they're carried over. And then under the bonnet, you've got a 6.2 litre supercharged V8. We'll have a look at it. So you might notice this HSV badge. It's not a Holden badge. It's a unique to HSV. It does incorporate the line like the Holden, but then it's got this racing helmet. But yeah, there sits the Chevrolet LSA V8, supercharged V8. Nestled between the banks is a Eaton Roots type supercharger running 9 psi. It's a 1.9 litre supercharger. But it gives you some indication of just how much potential this thing has. I mean, 9 psi and it's already churning out 430 kilowatts. Imagine just screwing that up just a little bit, you'd be pushing 450 plus quite easily. We'll start it up, have a listen to it. So like all HSVs, this is fitted with a bimodal exhaust and bimodal intake. You can't actually switch it on or off, or open it or close it. It does it automatically, but you can see it working in the HSV menu. Yeah, it's quite loud when it is open. When it's closed, it's like a refined, or not refined, but a muscly V8 that's muffled up, I suppose. Nice little crackle on the overrun there too. I'll just get it out of the sun and we can have a look at the interior. So yeah, what are you getting? This is based on a Commodore, but what are you getting as the GTS in terms of interior packaging? Well, there's not too much. You get these big HSV seats, the HSV interface, and that gives you various menus you can look at. So you've got your live sort of intake pressure, your average kilometers, lap timer, G-force meter and slip angle meter for drifting, your suspension, and your airflow. There's also like a race telemetry there too. But apart from that, you're getting a Holden Commodore, which means you've got plenty of room in here. It's one of the largest sedans you can get in Australia. There's no shortage of space or even convenience. You got little pockets and things everywhere. But it's not, I wouldn't call it a luxurious interior. It's more of a sort of sporty interior. But you certainly get everything that you need. You got sat nav, reverse camera, and things like that. We'll have a look at the back seat. So again, this is a definite 5-seat family car. 5 adults can easily fit in here, even in the middle. Yeah, there's plenty of room, lots of headroom as well. Knee space. Even though this does have a heavy-duty drivetrain, the transmission tunnel is in proportion to the interior. So there's no restrictions there. The GTS does come with slight individual or semi-individual bucket seats for the sides, and then a flip down armrest, little compartment inside it as well. But yeah, this is definitely a cool car to be cruising around in. There aren't many 430 kilowatt cars that offer the practicality and the space of this. So we did actually plan to take this to the track, but the track day was cancelled, unfortunately, so we were unable to do that. But I'll try and show you what it's like to drive a 430 kilowatt manual transmission muscle car. So you've got various driver modes to choose from: touring, sport, performance, and then track. And basically this is a system for the traction and stability control. So if you've got it in track, it will actually allow some slip and wheel spin as well. And then of course you can turn it all the way off. I remember when the VF based GTS first came out back in 2013, I think it was. I was just blown away by the power figures of the engine. 430 kilowatts and 740 newton meters of torque. That torque figure especially, it just blew me away, because I thought, how the hell can you possibly put that down through the ground with rear wheel drive? Let alone with a manual transmission. You've got to try and balance the clutch. But surprisingly, it's got a lot of traction, these latest HSVs. It doesn't just spin away all the power as much as you think it would. When you match that with the natural dynamics of the VF, which are actually pretty good, yeah, it turns out to be a well-sorted car, even with this amount of power. HSV has obviously got its own suspension and much wider tyres. I think they're 275s on the back. But even still, it's quite a dynamic car to drive. So in terms of power, it's very progressive and linear. It won't actually frighten you unless you put your foot down and just really leave it there and let it wind right out. This manual transmission, every gear is quite long, so you can leave it in third if you want to and just go around the corner, and then because you've got 740 newton meters of torque, you can just pull through with no problem at all. Peak torque comes in at 4,000 or 4,200 RPM, and it's just, yeah, it's really strong. Yeah, so that's only about a quarter of the throttle, and it just picks up and just goes like it's going downhill, or like the rear wheels are just lifted off the ground almost. As I said, the engine's quite muffled when the valves aren't open. It takes about 4,000 RPM for them to open. But then when they do, all hell breaks loose. Those good brakes, you can just wipe off speed straight away. Really gives you confidence too. As you can probably tell, there's quite a lot of traction. It's not as intimidating as you might think. But even if we slowed right down and take off in first gear, it's not as difficult as you might think. So it's flat. It's a little bit of wheel spin into second gear, but nothing too dramatic. But the end result is just speed. You just get enormous pressure in the back, and just, yeah, the speed builds and builds. I would have liked to have seen an exhaust valve button or something that can just leave that exhaust open, as opposed to having to wait to 4,000 RPM for it to open. But you know, aside from that, there's no point in criticizing something that's going to retire very soon. I think it will just remain as, yeah, the best performance car as Australia has ever made. Certainly the most dynamic performance car, mainstream performance car Australia has ever made. I'm not a huge fan of muscle cars, but the more and more I drive this, I've had this for 6 days now, I'm really warming to it. It's a big friendly beast. I'm gonna miss it.